So this is why I think for 2022, you should not start a poultry farm. Hello, hobby gardeners, farmers, and DIY lovers. It's your boy, I.am.Will, and today I'm super excited because today is the very first episode of Just Farm Talk. Now, what I want to achieve with these talks is to move away from the usual videos that I've been uploading. I will keep uploading them, but I want to, bring a new variety into the videos that I do upload. And in these episodes, I'll be discussing farming, gardening, and DIY. As you know, that's what my channel does. And today's video is around farming, so it's just farm talk. And what I want to discuss is poultry farming. As you all know or may not know, my poultry farm is in Ghana, West Africa. So the issue that I'm going to discuss is issue that I am facing in Ghana in my poultry farm, which I can also confidently say could be an issue in other places in Africa. I don't know about places like Pakistan, India, US, Canada, UK, which is where some of my subscribers are watching from. So I don't know the issues around those areas, but if you can tell me after watching this video how the issue that I'm going to discuss apply to your area or doesn't apply to your area, if you can leave all your comments in a comment section, it would be great so that we can all share in this conversation. But today, specifically Ghana, specifically Africa, I'm going to discuss why I think you should not start poultry farming in 2022 if you live in Ghana or in Africa. Now, before we start this conversation, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, and hit the notification button so that you don't miss out on anything I share online. Remember that I have an Instagram page. Usually I post up pictures of what's happening on a farm on my Instagram page, which I cannot do on YouTube. So if you're not following me on Instagram, the link is somewhere there. It's also on my about or description area on my channel, and also my Facebook. I do share some of those pictures and short videos on there. Please do follow or subscribe to these other platforms so that you can get more information around farming, gardening, and DIY. Alright, so welcome back. As I said, today we're going to discuss poultry farming in Ghana or in Africa, and I'm hoping that the issue that I'm going to discuss is not in your area if you live in Pakistan, India, US, or other places outside of Africa. But if it does, I very much appreciate if you can leave comments in the comment section, or if it doesn't, you can still leave a comment and you maybe touch on what I've discussed or something else, or you can make suggestions to the issues that I'm going to discuss. And if it's a case of you having your poultry farm in Africa or in Ghana and you think you have the same issue, you've observed the same issue on your farm, please let me know, because it would be worthwhile to know that I'm not crazy or I'm not doing anything wrong. But if I'm doing something wrong, please also enlighten me by sharing in a comment section so that we can all learn together, because I'm still in a learning process. I don't have all the answers to farming issues, so I very much appreciate it if you can share your ideas and thoughts with me. Back to poultry farming and why I think you should not start poultry farming if you live in Ghana or in Africa in the year 2020. I'm not saying you should completely give up on the dream, but what I'm saying is put it on hold and listen to what I'm about to say and watch the trends. Ask around, go to other farms, ask them if they have the same issue that I'm discussing. They might not have, but if they do, I would entreat you to either put your poultry farming plans on hold or reduce the number of birds that you were intending to start. So if you were intending to start with 200, I would suggest start with maybe 50 or whichever numbers you wanted to start with. I would say start with 50. 50 sounds like a very decent number. It will keep you on your toes, and trust me, it's not easy to keep 50 birds. You would be surprised. If you're starting for the very first time, I would say between 20 and 50 is good. It will give you a very good idea of the business, and if something is going wrong or things are not going right, 50 is very easy to control. And if things are going right, you would realize that 50 is also very exciting. Once you've learned all the ins and outs, the diseases that could affect your flock, or some of the feeding issues, or even some of the things you may discover to your advantage whilst keeping these 50 birds or this limited amount of birds, you will realize that you are well equipped enough to now start or go on a larger scale. But I would entreat you to please consider what I'm about to say before you start. Do more research, a thorough research. Ask around, very, very important. Ask other poultry farmers if they would tell you the truth before you start poultry farming in Ghana or in Africa or wherever you are. Now, when I started my poultry farm, initially I bought the birds, was about 16, and then I moved on to buy 30 additional birds, and before I knew, I had about 50 birds or 70. But I will give you a full breakdown on how I started my poultry farm. Today's video is not about how I started it, but why I think you should not start your poultry farming yet in 2022. It's not to say don't start at all, but think about it before you start and do more research. And when I started, it was during the pandemic when it just started, and I was in Ghana and planes were grounded, so it's not like I had anywhere to go. And so I decided to keep myself busy with these 70 odd birds. The birds that I had on my farm were a hybrid, which was a crossbreed of broiler birds and the local birds. So when they start laying eggs, it's expected around 16 to 18 weeks, whereas breeds like the Gold Line, the Rhode Island Red, or the White Leghorns, they are expected to start laying after 14 to 16 weeks. So with mine, I was not very worried until when they went past 23 weeks, and before I knew, it was almost 9 months and they were still not laying. I think I had about, out of the 500 or 600 birds, let's say 250 were hens, and I expected at least 200 of them which had gone past the point of laying time or even were at the point of laying. I was expecting them to start laying, but out of those 200 birds, I think a lousy number of 10 were laying, and they were not even regular. So I was very worried about that, obviously, because they were eating the same amount of feed and just not being productive. And poultry farmers, we normally congregate around the local veterinary officer's office because that's where we go for our vaccines. And there was the talk about locally hatched birds not being good at egg production, whereas imported birds were very good at egg production. So for a minute, I actually did believe that, but then at some point I just completely rubbished the idea, because in Ghana, or normally in Africa, everything Africa or Ghanaian is not good, and everything European or outside of Africa is good. So I completely ignored the idea after even considering it for a while. But then I was looking around to see why the eggs are not being laid as I was expecting. And I then talked to other farmers who were importing or buying day-old. And they were also having egg production issues. One very good friend of mine who has 4,000 birds. He bought his birds from a local hatchery, and the first 2,000, they had fantastic laying rate. I think it was about 96% or so, which is amazing. And then he bought another batch from the same company who were hatching in Ghana, and bought 2,000 birds, and these were just not laying eggs. I think, as I said, they are expected to lay from 14 to 16 weeks, and these waited to about 23. I think, they started laying in week 23, and my friend was so frustrated. And even when they started laying, the egg production rate was about, I think, 30%. The maximum they reached was about 40%, and he was so frustrated that he sold almost all the birds during the Christmas period, and now I think he only got about 250 birds left out of almost 4,000 birds, because it was just not making any sense. And it's not just him, but I also know another farm which has about 37,000 birds. On all these 37,000 birds were also imported from Holland. So which actually gave me the hopes that it's not locally hatched birds, but it could be something else. So after asking a few other local farmers, I came to the conclusion that it must be the feed. And it is the feed. I'm very convinced that it is the quality of feed which is affecting the egg production, because I remember how the quality of the feed, just by looking at it, the texture of it, I remember that the layer mash was yellow to orange-ish in color, and it was very coarse, and the smell was different. And then after the lockdown, I think what happened was the feed manufacturing companies were not getting the ingredients they needed, the started rationing on the ingredients. Also because of the change in weather pattern in Ghana. I remember last year most farmers were complaining about the weather, and so they weren't able to produce the maize that they wanted to produce. So I think all of these things contributed to the decline of the feed quality that we were getting on the farm. And I think the companies in Ghana or maybe in Africa, I don't know about your place, but I think they're now playing catch up with the ingredients that they are getting. Other places where we were getting all these ingredients from, they were also facing the same issues. They had to halt their productions, and we normally in Africa, we get the surplus from these other places. So once they are struggling with their supply chain, I don't think we are going to get anything until there is surplus before we can get it. So I think this is what has affected poultry farming in Ghana and maybe in Africa, and it is affecting the laying capacity of the birds. So for 2022, I still think the problem is not solved, and the quality of feed hasn't changed. And I would very much caution you, if you want to go into egg production, poultry farming, I would entreat you to revise your plan, maybe hold on for a little bit, do more research, and check the quality of feed and other circumstances. But I think it's mainly down to the feeding, and make a good assessment of the situation before you go into poultry farming. You can start with a little bit, experiment to see whether it's indeed the feed quality, because in terms of meat production, I can't really complain. Our roosters that we sold were actually of good quality and weight, and so I can't complain. But I think the issue is down to the layer mash, which is affecting the birds. And this is not limited to my farm, but as discussed earlier, it goes beyond my farm. So please, I'm not saying you should not farm at all now or in the future, but what I'm saying is be cautious when you are approaching the poultry farming business, and maybe start with a very small amount of birds to make sure that you are getting the conditions right before you go big. So this is why I think for 2022, you should not start a poultry farm, or maybe for 2022, reduce the amount of birds that you intended to start your poultry farming business with until we've caught up on the quality of feed that we are producing in Ghana or in Africa. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you sticking around. If you have any comments, please leave it in the comment section or send me an email. Also, like, share, subscribe, very important. And finally, hit the notification button to get all the new updates that I'll be bringing to you. So for the next discussion, I think I want to talk about which animals or maybe which plants to start your farming business with. I know if I had to start all over again, what animals I would start with my farming business, or what plants I would start with my farming business. So until I see you again in the next talk, it's your boy, I am Will, and I am out.